as far as not being, still working with the same people every day, you lose touch with the people. You don't talk to the people anymore. And, I identified myself as a police officer. That's all I did. And all my friends were police officers. So now it's kind of odd because I'm not there all the time. I don't really talk to them any time. So I kind of felt alone.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty
and sacrifice of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? Time for another special on the road episode of Behind the Uniforms. I'm going to tell you who this guy is in 1 second, but first, we're out here in beautiful, sunny Florida for Heroes Weekend. It's an event put on by the Wounded Officers Initiative. We were sent down by our friends over at INFORCE and law enforcement today, and we are capturing the stories of some true American heroes. So, because you're not going to tell them that, so I get to do that. So tell them all who you are.
My name is Rocco Besednjak. I'm a recently medically retired police officer from the Shepherdsville Police Department in Kentucky. I currently live in Lexington, Kentucky.
So this is your second retirement, I hear.
It is my second retirement. I ended up being medically retired from the Navy in 2001, and actually retired when I was 22 years old. And then I did some civilian work, working at Fort Knox and working at loss prevention. And then I became a police officer in 2009 for the city of Shepherdsville.
Because you just refused to not serve your country.
Pretty much.
Will you tell me about that day?
The day that I became injured, it was July 3rd of 2016. I had watched a vehicle leave a house that I knew a lot of drug activity had happened at. She pulled into a parking lot, the female did. Her name was Tara Litzy. And I ran the plates on the vehicle. It came back that she had a suspended license. She pulled into a gas pump. I pulled in right behind her, and she automatically got out of her car. When she got out of her car, I went ahead and got out and met her at her back bumper. Told her, the reason I stopped you, you had a suspended license. She acted like she didn't know. Got the passenger's information. At that time, I already had a backup unit en route. Backup unit shows up, and I said, keep an eye on them, told them where they came from. And so I went back to my car to run her and the passenger, checking for warrants. The other officer, who was the backup officer, noticed she was acting kind of squirrely. Asked for her keys, and he took her keys, put them on top of her car. And when I was in my car running her information, it came back that she had 4 or 5 felony warrants. She had warrants for running over her boyfriend and another guy. She had warrants for fleeing the police, wanting endangerment to a police officer, burglary. Violent felonies.
Just an upstanding citizen.
No, yeah. And so I stopped, so I went in and got out. I told the other officers, I said, she was 1085, which means she was wanted. Went up to her car, said, go ahead, step out of your car. And she started, him-hawing. I opened up the door, said, go ahead, step out of your car. And she said, well, I need to roll up my windows first. And she grabbed the keys from on top of her car. Well, at that time, I knew that's something was going downhill. I reached in the car. The top half of my body was in the car, and I grabbed the keys, or tried to grab the keys, but she got it in the ignition and started it and floored it. And the top half of my body was pretty much in her lap with the door open, and she dragged me about 50 to 60 feet. I came out of the car. She made a right-hand turn. I came out of the car, rolled a couple times, hit the curb with my neck, and she ran over my leg, my left leg. I jumped up, running off pure adrenaline, jumped up and ran to my car to go after her because I was pissed off because she was getting away. And the other guys, they're in shock because they thought I got hurt. They're just standing there, because they actually ended up saying they thought I hit my head on the curb. And I chased after where I thought she went for about a mile and a half. And then my neck and my back started tightening up after I didn't catch up with her. So I pulled over into a parking lot, and I called for EMS to come get me. EMS got me, and they took me to the hospital. where they did X-rays and CTs and ultrasound stuff, make sure there was no internal bleeding, anything. Well, they couldn't find any structural damage at the time, so they thought I just had a severe neck sprain, upper back sprain. Told me to follow up with a work comp doctor. They let me out early that morning. When I stopped her, it was between 11:30, 12 o'clock, almost midnight. I went home, and department said, go ahead and take the rest of the week off. I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. Took the rest of the week off. Went back to work actually that next week. Work comp doctor went ahead and told me to go to physical therapy twice a week for the muscle strain. I was going to physical therapy twice a week and going to work still, and as they were starting to loosen up the muscles in my neck and my neck started hurting more and more and more. I went to the doctor and I said, something's not right. It hurts just to hold my head up. So he put in for an MRI, and come to find out I ended up having multiple herniated discs in my neck. So he put me off of work. That was around the end of August. And he told me, this is kind of common. What happens is the muscles lock up. And at the time, I was a lot bigger too. I had really big muscles in my back and neck and shoulders. And he said what happened is they locked up to protect that injury. And over the time with physical therapy, they were loosening up. So now everything's starting to settle back where it's supposed to be. So I ended up having to get a fusion in my neck. And they ended up, like I said, they caught the girl 2 days later after she got away that night, and ended up having to have trial on her. I had a trial on her in April of 2017, and she ended up being found guilty of assault first degree on a police officer, fleeing and evading, along with being a persistent felony offender. She got 40 years in prison. She has to do 20 before she's eligible for parole. And her sentencing date was on May 31st, was actually the last day that I was a police officer, because I ended up retiring June 1st. It was the first day of my retirement. So I medically retired, but in October or August of this last year, of 2017, I had to have a surgery on my lower back. They did a decompression surgery to remove bone and stuff from the bone and ligaments from my spinal cord and nerve roots, try to help with the pain. However, it's a lot worse now than it was. So now I'm waiting for a spinal stimulator implant to be approved to try to help with the pain. And that's the bad thing. Like, if you were to look at me, I'd look completely fine, because you can't see like the chronic pain, the pain. Like right now, just sitting down is really bothers me. I can't sit or stand for more than a couple hours at a time, because I get completely miserable. And that's dealing with that, and then dealing with work comp, where they denied the initial spinal stimulator implant, and it's been appealed, so I'm waiting for that. Hopefully it gets approved, because that's pretty much my last option. I've already done physical therapy, I've done injections, I've done surgeries, and I've been on opiate medicine, and because of doctor mess-ups, I ended up having a gap in treating providers, so I'd actually had to go through opiate withdrawals for a month on top of feel all the pain. So I think if it could make it rough, if there's something that could screw up, I think it's pretty much happened. So, I mean, I just take it every day, day by day, and try to deal with it.
One of the things that consistently comes out of conversations like this with police officers who have been wounded in the line of duty is that so many of them feel that they were sort of hung out to dry after their injury by their department, or that they were in the middle of sort of this no man's land where there are very few organizations that support them. How did it feel to get the phone call about this weekend?
It was actually great. Actually, I met John Rogowski online in one of the police pages, and I talked to him about what happened to me, and he reached out and told me about this weekend, about this organization, and I thought it was great. He said it helped him out a lot last year, when you came here. And it's really hard. It's nice to know and like to talk to him and the other officers who have been wounded, to realize I'm not the only one going through the same thing. You know, this isn't a thing that's just specific to me. And, you know that there's other officers out there to reach out to talk to, because there is nothing out there. I searched and searched for wounded officer programs. There's all kinds of wounded vet programs, but like wounded first responder and police officer programs and stuff. You just don't, you can't find it. And like you said, like in no man's land, you're not a police officer, but you don't feel like you're a civilian. And it's, I had good backing from my department. They helped me through the retirement thing, but as far as not being, still working with the same people every day, you lose touch with the people. You don't talk to the people anymore. And, I identified myself as a police officer. That's all I did. And all my friends were police officers. So now it's kind of odd because I'm not there all the time. I don't really talk to them many times. So I kind of felt alone. Now I'm actually making friends that aren't police officers, which is odd because when I was a cop, that's all I had. It was cop friends, and it's just a weird transition. But I think the hardest part of everything was, when I was told that I couldn't be a cop anymore by my doctor, and that was pretty rough.
That's when it all hit.
Yeah, that's when it all hit. That's when all the emotional, psychological stuff just came to the forefront. And that ended up being months after the physical injury, because that's when everything became realization, hey, this physical injury, this physical pain is going to directly relate to the rest of your life. You're no longer going to be what you were. And it wasn't by my choice. That was the hardest thing. It was someone else's actions that caused that.
Brother, talk to me a little bit about hope. You're clearly a warrior. You didn't give up after the military. You now have gone on to make some incredible connections. You've got a fiance that's totally out of your league. Talk to me a little bit about hope and what's next, and something that people could take away from this.
Talking to my therapist and stuff, I realized, I identified as a police officer and stuff like that. And they said, well, maybe you're not a police officer, you're not a sailor, you're a servant, And I realized, I started working with a group called the Kentucky Wounded Heroes, and meeting other wounded heroes, wounded first responders and veterans and stuff there. And then I also, on my own, I was reached out to other wounded officers on Facebook. I met a friend who's a wounded officer in Georgia, and he's had some rough times, and he was, dealt a worse hand than even I was, and he has neck and back issues. And I have a friend that I went to high school with. Myself and I, we went down there. Myself and my friend, we went down to Georgia and took him on his first turkey hunting trip, because I realized being outdoors, that's therapeutic to me, whether it's hunting, fishing, or whatever, because that everything out there is completely separate from everything I have to deal with. And so we took him on first time turkey hunting to get him out of the house. And so we took him out for the weekend down there in Georgia turkey hunting, and it was great. He loved it. He said it's opened up his eyes. It was refreshing. And that's, I try to use my story and stuff now and try to help out other officers and stuff that I know I was in a dark place at one time, and I know he was. And I just, like I said, I just want to continue serving. That's just my calling.
You are, brother. I mean, I was sharing this earlier. We had a woman who served in the military who left, became a police officer. She tried to take her own life twice, and she said that she failed and was going to do it a third time.
Yeah.
And saw some of these stories, and it saved her life, and it gave her new hope and new direction. There are a lot of eyeballs on this, man. You're just in your next act. Mm-hmm. That's what this comes down to. And the fact that you have the courage to do this, which is not easy to do. It's not an easy story to share. You're touching a hell of a lot of lives out there, man, and could be saving one right now. So, brother, I appreciate you sharing your story, man.
Thank you.
God bless. Guys, thank you for hitting the share button on this video. Thanks for watching. God bless America.